Hi. So, there's a lot of things I need to tell you about the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So a couple of months ago, when the Iceberg memes were really popping off, I posted my own that went extremely viral on Twitter about my favorite movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Well, after an unreasonable amount of work, I'm finally ready to present an explanation of every secret from the Roger Rabbit cinematic universe. Buckle in. This is going to be a very, very weird ride. We start off on perhaps one of the most controversial and well-known freeze frames of all time. When Jessica Rabbit falls out of Benny the Cab, there is a single frame where she is shown upskirt without any panties. Now, to be fair, it is nearly impossible to see in real time, and the animators don't exactly draw anything too anatomically correct. Like, we're not seeing any labia or pubic hair or anything. But once the cat was out of the bag, every teenager was looking to get their hands on. So the original Laserdisc release of Who Framed Roger Rabbit is one of the most sought-after Laserdiscs ever. We're going to be mentioning this version of the movie a few times during this video. Supposedly this copy is the closest to the original theatrical release that features uncut versions of two notorious freeze frame scenes, including Jessica Rabbit's upskirt shot and... While everyone freaked out over Jessica Rabbit's genitals, the scene I find more corrupting is when baby Herman clearly fingers a female production assistant after the opening cartoon. This scene still remains mostly intact in every release, including re-airings on family-friendly networks such as Cartoon Network. The only supposed difference between most releases and the Laserdisc theatrical release is that baby Herman is seen showing the middle finger for a brief second before shoving it up the assistant's skirt. Yikes. Anyway, look at this Weinstein-ass face he makes when he does it.
And now, poetry by
Donald Duck.
Okay, obvious trigger warning here for racial slurs. This one is really bad.
I've worked with a lot of wisecrackers, but you are despicable.
Feeling problematic yet? Yeah, we're only on number 5, by the way. Supposedly, he's saying doggone stubborn little. And I know he's Donald Duck and all, but like, no, he's not saying that. There is still no explanation of why they chose to have Donald say these words. It's not really his vocabulary. Like, I know the script had Donald saying doggone stubborn little. But how did the sound designer not hear the obvious N-word in Donald's voice? Just want to remind you that this movie won the Oscar for Best Sound Editing. Okay, I know I got a little heated on that one. Let's take a quick break from the scandalous stuff and cheer ourselves up with a wholesome story of two people losing out on a huge opportunity. Did you know that Terry Gilliam was originally slated to direct Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Also, Bill Murray was supposed to star as Eddie Valiant. Terry Gilliam, who was coming off of the financially unsuccessful yet critically renowned Brazil, declined the project for being too technically challenging. Bill Murray, on the other hand, would have loved the part, but is notorious for only accepting roles via a voicemail. So basically, in order to pitch Bill a project, you leave a brief voicemail in his box, and if he likes the idea, he'll sign on pretty much no questions asked. Allegedly, the producers did reach out to the voicemail, but never received a reply. Murray claims he missed the call and regrets it to this day.
I'm a god.
Now, we'll talk plenty more about who ended up actually directing the movie, Robert Zemeckis, but I wanted to take just a moment to imagine how this movie would turn out with Terry Gilliam and Bill Murray. Like, of course the movie turned out great, but Gilliam's production design is simply next level, and I think we would have had an even trippier aesthetic with much more haphazard pacing that might have suited the cartoon elements in a more harmonious way. On the other hand, I think Bill Murray would have put a bunch of sarcasm into his performance that would have actually been detrimental compared to Bob Hoskins' literally pitch-perfect performance.
Oh my God, it's dead!
This one's kind of an obvious one to anyone who's worked with ink and paint, but the ingredients to the Toon Killin' Sludge dip is actually paint thinner. Kind of cool, right? Moving on.
Patty cake, big first man. Big Elmo a cake as fast as you can.
Now, I don't know about you, but one of the biggest scenes that flew over my head as a kid was the patty cake scene near the beginning, where Jessica Rabbit supposedly cheats on Roger with Marvin Acme. If you haven't seen the movie, basically it starts with Eddie Valiant being hired to catch Roger Rabbit's suspiciously hot wife, Jessica, cheating on him and to take pictures in the act. Of course, Eddie manages to stumble on Jessica and Acme having a typical, "Not tonight, I'm tired" discussion. It's actually one of the slimier bits of dialogue in the whole movie, as Marvin Acme starts going full Louis C.K. on Jessica.
I got everything arranged right here on the bed.
Oh, not tonight, Marvin. I have a headache.
What, Jessica? You promised.
And by the way, Marvin Acme is portrayed as a good guy the entire movie. Once Acme finally coerces Jessica, saying she promised, they start chanting the word patty cake. Eddie just says, "You gotta be kidding me," and the audience is supposed to think Eddie's watching the two have sex, which is why Acme sounds like he's about to bust.
Cake? Cake? Patty cake? Patty cake? Patty cake?
The audience assumes patty cake is a weird 1940s slang for sex. Turns out, the twist is patty cake is a Toon stand-in for infidelity, leaving Roger devastated when he flips through the pictures of them literally playing patty cake, one of the best sight gags in the movie. The reason I bring up patty cake is because it's always somehow lived rent-free in my head, forgive my use of beaten to death Twitter memes. Like, Marvin Acme was straight nutting. The Ink and Paint Club is basically a strip club for humans that have a thing for toons, so I guess my question is, do toons have sex in this universe? I think the answer is probably not, like not in the penis and vagina sense, but like, does patty cake feel good? Or is it literally just being used as like a weird metaphor for sex? Or is it just a joke about old-timey 1940s slang? And while Jessica explains that Marvin Acme was forced to pose for those pictures, none of that really makes sense, and Acme still looks like a total creep right before his death. Also, is looking at people playing patty cake like porn for toons? Like... They're like some sort of toon cuck fantasy. Like somebody playing patty cake with their wife, dude. Like, is this the equivalent of Roger seeing full penetration of his wife? Like, because the hands are touching? Either way, it's an extremely odd plot point to throw in within the first 10 minutes of your family movie. So why did they throw it in? Well, even though Roger Rabbit was based on a novel, which we will cover extensively later on, most of the screenplay for the movie was based on 1974's Chinatown, one of the absolute classics of the neo-noir genre. If you've ever seen both movies, the similarities in the plot stand out pretty clear right away. Chinatown starts out with a down-on-his-luck client who is begging Jake to catch his wife committing infidelity before stumbling into a deeper conspiracy. Sound familiar? Other obvious similarities include the weasel sent after Eddie emulating the thug sent after Jake, and the fact that the whole conspiracy deals with a public service, transportation in Roger Rabbit, and waterworks in Chinatown. So ultimately, Roger Rabbit is just an extraordinary parody movie at heart that manages to simply stand out on its own. But once you start recognizing its influences, you start to uncover why there are so many adult elements snuck in. But that still doesn't answer my question. Does patty cake feel good? Are toons able to have sex in this universe? My theory? Absolutely not. Toons are unable to have sex in this universe and are essentially asexual beings, unless if the sexual attraction is funny. During the golden age of animation, there was a strict code that all films had to follow. This code basically outlawed sex and nudity in most films, especially animation that was most often aimed at kids. It makes sense that toons in the 1940s era setting are not only forbidden from having sex, but are most likely unable to even perform it. Like, I don't think Roger has a penis, and I didn't think Jessica had a vagina, because no one drew them with one. The movie never explains who creates cartoons or where they come from, but it's suggested that they were drawn up by somebody or something, and therefore must follow a set of strict guidelines, with sex probably not even being relevant to any toon's existence. Enter humans and their eternal horniness. Just like death and taxes, you can always rely on people getting their rocks off to literally anything. A humanoid that can be drawn as voluptuous as possible? Makes sense someone would try to have sex with that. However, because toons followed that strict Hollywood code from the 40s, humans needed to create something to simulate sex that followed the code. So, of course, the most babyish game imaginable was chosen. Patty cake does not feel good. Its pleasure comes from the trophy of a successful sexual conquest. It's actually pretty humiliating, and while I'm not going to go down the baby play fetish aspect of it all, patty cake, in my opinion, is the ultimate condemnation of the silliness of sexual attraction as a whole. The end game of a typical horn dog's pursuit of sex is not about love, procreation, or even pleasure, but instead about attraction and the pride of conquering the conventionally hottest person, even if they're not even freaking human. Sex gets relegated into a baby's game, not only because of the Hollywood code, but because the pursuit of sex, simply for the goal of nailing the most attractive people, is as silly as actually playing patty cake. So patty cake opens way too many Pandora's boxes here, and frankly, I'm going down a really dumb path here, I know. In reality, it seems like patty cake exists in the plot simply to break Roger's heart, but he does rebound from that heartbreak remarkably quickly, suggesting that toons are not susceptible to the jealousy that humans have, because in the end, who cares who plays patty cake with his wife? It's patty cake. This one's not much of a secret or anything. Pretty sure everyone knows that Roger Rabbit has his own ride at Disneyland, but we do need to talk about it. Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin is a ride that opened in 1993 at Disneyland and Tokyo Disneyland. It's a popular ride that is similar to the typical car rides found in Fantasyland, except they put spinning Benny the Calves as vehicles instead. It's actually one of my favorite rides at the park, and unfortunately, the ride is just kind of seeming a little aged at this point, because, you know, Disney really doesn't do anything to promote Roger Rabbit ever, so it looks really weird having a Roger Rabbit ride in Disneyland when, like, Disney almost disowns the movie at this point. Tragedy occurred in 2000 when a 4-year-old fell out of the Disneyland version and suffered severe brain damage. The victim's family sued and eventually settled out of court. The child succumbed to his injuries in 2009 at the age of 13. Yeah, guys, I'm sorry for that left turn, but the ride is really good. The queue line itself has an incredible feeling of walking through the seediest parts of Toontown, and the ride has a lot of great psychedelic colors, mirrors, and an overall zany golden era cartoon vibe. So, yeah, I'm sorry, this entry made me sad. We might talk a little bit more about this one later on, but let's move on to a happier one. This one is pretty well known by now since there are numerous on-set photos, but the voice of Roger Rabbit, Charles Fleischer, also known for being the creep in the scariest scene in Zodiac.
Not many people have basements in California.
I do.
Would show up on set dressed in a Roger costume, so Bob Hoskins would have someone to play off of. When most people think of this fun little movie fact, they assume that Charles is probably there to keep spirits high and tensions low, but that didn't seem to be the case. Now, stand-ins are definitely common on set, and this really seems like a cute idea, but in reality, it seems like most cast and crew members were actually turned off by a grown man in a bunny suit, making jokes on an exceedingly difficult set all day. We'll touch on that a little more when we talk about numerous making-of documentaries, so stay tuned.
Now this is kind of fun though, you get to punch people.
I'm sure many of you are familiar with Angry Video Game Nerd, so I quickly wanted to throw in this short entry on his video on the Roger Rabbit SNES game. I don't have much to say about this except that maybe 2006 humor doesn't age too well.
Yeah, well, wait till I draw your suicide note in your own blood, you bunny fucking bitch. I'm coming over, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill your whole motherfucking family.
But this is considered one of his more well-known videos with over 4 million views, and just wanted to throw it out there along with acknowledging the Roger Rabbit video games. I don't have much to say about them. Super easy here. Roger Rabbit references the classic rabbit season, duck season gag found in the 1951 short Rabbit Fire. Good joke, everybody laugh. Roger Rabbit goes through the same gag when Eddie Valiant offers him a drink.
Sick reference though, bro.
Oh, thanks, bud.
Dude, your references are out of control. Everyone knows that.
Another quickie, the record that Doom picks up in the bar is called MerryGoRound Broke Down, which Doom calls a loony selection. MerryGoRound Broke Down is the theme song to Looney Tunes. Hey, who remembers the show Bonkers? Me neither. Bonkers was one of the Disney Channel's very earliest animated TV shows. If you look at the design and overall concept of the show, it's very easy to imagine that Bonkers was originally planned to be a Roger Rabbit TV show. This, however, is simply a rumor. But the idea of tunes and humans coexisting, plus a bumbling cartoon detective who suspiciously looks a lot like Roger, really makes me doubt that Bonkers is not at the very least a ripoff. By the way, we're not talking about Cool World at all in this video, just in case you're wondering.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great. That's great.
It's going to be great.
Oh God, where do I begin? So, how did this movie get made? As Eisner first started working at Disney in the early 80s, he wanted to adapt Gary K. Wolfe's novel, Who Censored Roger Rabbit, and we'll talk about the novel in a second, oh boy, don't worry. He faced a lot of pushback due to the novel's strangeness and technical difficulty. However, Eisner had a very powerful friend. That's right, Big Stevie Spiebysburg himself, dude. Now, just a few years ago, Eisner helped fund Raiders of the Lost Ark while he was working at Paramount. That's a nice back scratch. By now, Spielberg was Hollywood royalty and was able to convince Warner Brothers, Disney, MGM, Fleischer Cartoons, and others to license their famous characters for a reasonable price. Spielberg's connection with George Lucas also proved instrumental in convincing Disney to greenlight the project under their subsidiary, Touchstone Pictures. If you don't know what Touchstone Pictures is, they're basically Disney's adults-ish movie production house. Movies that don't exactly scream Disney, but are still under their conglomerate. So after all is said and done, Disney and Amblin, Spielberg's new production company, agreed to split 50-50 profits on rights to all ticket sales, merchandise, attractions, and sequels. The movie, of course, was a massive success, becoming the highest grossing movie of 1988, only behind Rain Man, which, by the way, how the hell did Rain Man make so much money? Okay, never mind. And with merchandise selling like hotcakes, it only made sense to try to whore Roger and crew as much as possible during the late 80s and 90s. And why not? Everyone loved the new characters, and many others found new love after being reintroduced to classic cartoons. Roger Rabbit is often cited as the beginning of the animation renaissance during the 90s, leading the way to some of the best animated movies of all time, like The Little Mermaid, The Lion King, and even TV shows such as Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, and Freakazoid. So everything was coming up roses for Roger and crew. They even starred in a great animated short called Tummy Trouble, which was aired before Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. The movie was a success, with the Roger Rabbit short being attributed to his box office total. Obviously, it's time for a sequel, right? Well, I'm going to have to cover that with these next few entries. After the movie, 3 Roger Rabbit shorts were produced to be screened in front of Disney Touchstone's new films. First off, these shorts are my favorite pieces of Roger Rabbit media. Also, there are going to be way too many Easter eggs and secrets about these 3 cartoons that I'm just not going to be able to cover, so check out this blog I found that does a great job detailing every little secret in these shorts. Trust me, it's a long read. But the reason I bring up the shorts is because they are a major reason why a sequel was never produced. As we said earlier, Tummy Trouble was the first short to be released in front of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and was a resounding success. It was the second short, called Roller Coaster Rabbit, where things started to go wrong between Eisner and Spielberg. You see, Spielberg's production company Amblin had joined forces with Disney to make the movie Arachnophobia, decent movie, and wanted to premiere the short before that movie. Kinda weird to play a cartoon in front of a horror movie, but Arachnophobia is definitely on the comedy horror side, so it's understandable. Eisner, on the other hand, wanted to release the short in front of Dick Tracy. Not a decent movie. Eisner ended up winning, and Roller Coaster Rabbit was shown in front of Dick Tracy, making Spielberg big mad. And while Spielberg shut down production on another Roger Rabbit short entitled Hair in My Soup, there was still one more short that ended up getting released in front of box office bomb A Faraway Place. This short was called Trail Mix-Up. And this is the last we've seen of Roger. Also, there's an unproduced prequel where Roger Rabbit fights the Nazis. More on that in part 2. Guys, thanks for watching my video. This is my first one here, so please leave me a sub. Give me a follow on Twitch. We stream every day from 7 to 10 Pacific Standard Time. And if you're new, hop aboard. This train is about to go off. This is your chance to get on as a first class ticket passenger. I don't know what I'm talking about, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.